Welcome to the module called Blue Cross Targets. If you remember when we went for the iMTF strategy, I talked about the strategy rules and we're going to give you the worst case scenario, and later on we'll show you optimization techniques to improve. Well, this is one of those modules. In this module, we're going to talk about the target. In the iMTF strategy, we talked about determining the target based on a 3-to-1 reward risk ratio. However, there is another method where we do provide the targets for you in certain situations. In certain situations, we provide targets. They're represented as blue crosses. Blue cross targets will be seen on the chart when a new trend or counter trend starts. If it's existing trend or existing counter trend, you will not see targets. It's only when a brand new trend starts. A colored shade with targets is a new trend. No shade with targets is a new counter trend. So what dictates it to be a new trend versus a new counter trend is having a colored shade, which is pretty much the colored background. Green represents bullish, red represents bearish. Targets for continuation trades are not printed. The target is determined, and if it's not printed, you go to the method that we went through in the iMTF strategy, which is determining where the 3-to-1 reward risk ratio is, and that will be your target. Targets allow a trader to achieve more than 3-to-1 reward risk ratio when you have those blue cross targets. Let's go through some examples to describe the different situations and to explain this blue cross target module. Here's the first example here. This is a good one. You have this green shade here. It tells you it's a new trend. You have a timing element. The timing element can occur inside the shade, or it can even occur right after the shade, believe it or not. In this example, it occurred in the shade, and you could see the blue cross targets are right there, so you know exactly where this is going to go to. In this example, the timing element is here. You entered right there, and this is after the shade here. So it's not in the shade as the previous example. That's completely fine. But as long as you could see these blue cross targets, you could use them as your target level. So the key is that if you have a timing element outside the shade, as long as you could still see these cross targets and have not gotten there, you could reuse them. Here's another example here. Here's a timing element that developed here. In this example, when the timing element occurred, there were no targets at all for the bullish side. So you had to determine a 3-to-1. Later on, a new trend started and you got some blue crosses here. So since this did not have a shade here at all, this turned into a counter trend trade after a little while. So at that point, once you got these targets, even though initially you calculated a 3-to-1, you now could sit there and use these blue crosses as your targets, and you could see you got more than 3-to-1 reward risk ratio here and getting to those targets. Here's another example here where you have a iMTF entry right there, and if you look, there is no shade here. There's no cross targets at all. Once the trend started, believe it or not, you got to 3-to-1, and then the blue crosses appear. So this is a situation where, just like the previous example, the targets appear after you enter the trade. Believe it or not, if the targets appear after you enter a trade, that is not a good situation at all. Because if you think about this, when you enter here, there should be a new trend or existing trend. Since this is not a new trend, because there's no previous targets at all, you're assuming this is existing trend. If this is existing trend, then all of a sudden these targets appear and this says this is a new trend. You're trading a consolidation pattern here, which is not a good situation. So the best trades are when you have a timing element in a shade or after the shade, not before at all. If you're in an existing trade and the shade or the blue crosses appear after you enter a trade, That's a low probability trade where when you get to your 3 to 1, I would exit the trade and not look for it to get to the targets at all.